Hi everyone, this is Kim from Two Kids and a Coupon, and today I'm talking with Chef Amy Power. Amy is the star of Fed and Frugal, which is on millionstories.com, and this is a show dedicated to cooking on a budget. Can you tell me a little bit more about it, Amy?
Hi, Kim. So nice to meet you. So we were really excited to do this cooking show. We wanted to get people into the kitchen and start cooking. Some people are very intimidated when they get into the kitchen and don't really know where to start. And you can replace certain ingredients and tweak recipes to accommodate your budget to suit everyone's taste and needs. So that's kind of how we started with this cooking show.
Now, prices at the grocery store are sky high. Shopping for almost anything is a little bit of a sticker shock. What are some of the budget essentials that you think everyone, whether they're a master chef or a beginner, need to have on hand?
Well, I think that just a basic pantry is always a really good thing to have in your kitchen, some fundamentals of things that you use. Things maybe that I like might not be someone's preferences on things, but like a good olive oil, a cooking oil, seasoning, salt, pepper, basic seasoning type things that you want. But I truly believe buying in bulk helps reducing the cost, because when you're buying something little, but then you go to, a Costco or something like that, and you can get 10 cans of olives. Granted, people have limited space, which I get that as well. But I do, for our family, I buy things that when they're on sale, I'm like, oh, okay, well, this jarred item is on sale. I'll get 2 more as a backup, so I don't have to pay full price next time when I run out. Things that won't expire necessarily.
So looking at the cost per serving or the cost per item can really save money.
Yeah, in shopping for sales and seasonal items, especially when that comes to produce. Right now, you got to think like fall season. You got the squashes coming in. Those are cheaper when it's fall, when it's peak season, rather than springtime or summer, and you're buying those ingredients. So you have to kind of look. The prices change when things are in peak season time.
I know that we stock up on a lot here, as I'm from Iowa, so sweet corn is a big deal. And at the end of the season, always remove the corn from the cob and freeze a great deal to enjoy later and to use in recipes.
Yes, and that's always great to use things at the peak time, and you can freeze it or you can it or do things like that, which is great to utilize your freezer. Like, I'm a firm believer, like when I'm making, say, chicken tortilla soup, I don't just make it for one night. I make it for like 10 and I freeze it. So when I don't feel like cooking, or I'm sick, or, we're out with the family a little bit later, all I have to do is pop it out of the freezer, defrost it the morning of, and then we have a meal where I'm not in the kitchen, because I love to cook, but I don't want to cook all the time,
And this is a great tip for busy parents who might not have as much time with school being back in session and sports being back. They might need to put a meal on the table very quickly.
Yes. And it always helps is if you do meal prep a little bit, it might take a little bit longer time to cook in a big batch of something, but it saves you the time in the long run. And you get to have the future meals without because when you're in a pinch, what do? You're like, oh, I don't feel like cooking tonight. Let's just go out to eat. And that adds up a lot of money when you could have things in your freezer that just saves you a little bit more time. And then you're not jumping to the restaurant. Not saying all restaurants are bad. It's just when you go out to eat, you're like, okay, that was like, $40. I could have put that towards food and had multiple meals,
Now, for someone who might have the time to do a full meal prep, what are some basic ingredients that they could maybe prep like as they go? I know when I'm browning ground beef, a lot of times I will brown more than one pan or pound in order to use it again for another meal. What are some basics that people can do just as they're making dinner normally?
Yeah, like what you're talking about with the ground beef, I do that as well sometimes, where I'll do several pounds, and then I'll do one that has, maybe like a little bit of like Mexican taco seasoning on it. And then say we'll do another one and I'll have like a marinara sauce and kind of do like a red sauce that we could do at pasta. And so you can take those and eat them throughout the week, or you can freeze a little bit. And then you're like, oh, all we have to do is take this ground, this meat sauce and put it with some pasta. Or, oh, we're going to have tacos tonight. So the changing up the flavors. But I think what helps me is, especially with kids' lunches, I have a 6-year-old and, I'm like, oh gosh, what am I going to do? But if you take your fruit and some vegetables that your kid likes, say bell peppers or things like that, instead of slicing one bell pepper, maybe I'll do 2 or 3 and I just have a container. So when he's hungry and comes home from school and he's like, Mom, I want a snack. Like I can just easily just go grab a handful of bell peppers, throw it on a plate, maybe add some crackers, and there you go for a meal. Where instead of I'm like getting out the cutting board, I'm slicing things. I'm, when you're already slicing that bell pepper, say for dinner or for his lunch, where you have like a little bit of extra and you can just easily obtain it out of the fridge, and that saves time. And then meal wise, I think just cooking a little bit of extra. I don't ever make just a normal amount. I'll maybe make 2 portions extra. So for lunch the next day, I can eat that. I can take it to work, or we can have it for lunch or dinner the next day. That always helps.
Now, you talk a lot about leftovers. What are some ways that viewers can spice up their leftovers so that their menu doesn't get boring, but they can still put these leftovers to good use?
Exactly. Because you sometimes don't want to eat the same thing every 3 days in a row. You're like, okay, I'm sick of that chicken dish, but if you do grilled chicken one night, you can, the next day, you can take that chicken, you can chop it up, you can shred it. You have a couple avenues that you can go to, possibly make some fried rice, do chicken tacos. You can do like a chicken pasta, so there's a couple different things that you can do. Is if are we going to want to go maybe an Asian flair? Do we want to go to Mexican or an Italian, where you can spice up that ingredient, but you're incorporating that protein that you already have cooked. And so you're not wasting it and you're zazzing up your taste buds.
Now, the holidays are just around the corner, and these meals can sometimes be our priciest ones of the year.
Yes.
What are some ways that you recommend that people can save on their holiday feasts?
Saving on your holiday feasts. Yes, it does add up. And with the groceries being so expensive, I would, shopping seasonally is important. And I think that things that add up are like, you think of like the fancier cheeses and, like dairies and stuff like that, that always brings up. But if you keep your ingredients pretty basic, like green beans and things like that, if you're just doing that, but when you mix into like a casserole where we're doing a lot of components, then that adds up. When you're like, I'm thinking of like, okay, you're going to bring a green bean dish. So you could do maybe green beans sauteed and some onions and butter with a little bit of slivered almonds. And then people look at the green bean casserole, which is amazing and one of my favorites, but you're adding in mushrooms, which those can add up. And you're adding in the cream and then the crispy toppings. And there's a lot of ingredients that you have to buy at the store for this one dish, where if you keep it a little simple, you're not spending as much on all these things that you maybe won't use throughout. You're buying all these pantry ingredients that you might not use throughout the year. So I think you don't have to do everything for Thanksgiving. Maybe pick a couple dishes that are your family's favorites. I think sometimes where it's like 12 different dishes that you have and you're eating just a little tiny bit of everything. It's like, maybe instead of 12, pick 3 things that are a go-to hit instead of buying all this food,
Absolutely. I know we've scaled back our family meals and everybody still eats way too much anyway.
Yeah.
So I've seen a couple dishes don't really get missed after all.
Yeah.
Now, for some might be less experienced, what are some ways that you can take items that might be a little bit prepackaged, like say a jar of spaghetti sauce, and make it your own to give it a little more flavor and pizzazz?
Absolutely. I'm a fan when, I can make a red sauce from scratch, but I love a good charred marinara sauce, because I'm like, you can take things and add it to make your own, like onions and extra ground beef or olives and capers, and you can do things like that and zazz it up. And is someone going to be like, oh, this is a jarred sauce, it doesn't taste good? There's things like that. Other things that I utilize is I know the jarred sauce, but also just sometimes like a frozen like dough. So for example, like if you had like some extra dough in the freezer section that was on sale and you wanted to make pizzas that night, you could easily take that out. And it's like, yeah, you could make your dough from scratch, or you could just grab something that's here and cheaper, and I know it's like cheap, but it's the time that you have making the dough. You know what I mean?
Well, and the meals don't do you any good if you don't have the time to make them. So
Exactly. And that's really hard and challenging for a lot of families and people.
Now, one thing I noticed you mentioned in one of your videos is that kitchen appliances can end up saving you a lot of time. I know I can't live without my KitchenAid mixer. I use it almost every day. What are some appliances that cooks might want or to invest in to save themselves some time and money, especially since holiday gift ideas are just around the corner?
Exactly. I believe kitchen appliances like the KitchenAid it's an investment at front, but then it can be your workhorse and you'll have it for a very long time. I think everyone's needs are different. So KitchenAid is perfect for, the baker and the, I love making mashed potatoes out of mine and things like that. I love, my food processor. I use that a lot just to shred and slice and dice things easier when I'm making stuff, or even a blender of some sort and a hand blender. I don't think you need all three. I think you need to look as an individual of what makes sense for your lifestyle and think of one thing that you might want to purchase for ease in the kitchen. Those are things that I like. If you're more of a smoothie maker, and a blender would be good, but you could also make smoothies, but you can do a lot of sauces and mayonnaise and chutneys and dressings and things like that in that as well. Pureed soups and stuff. So I think it is good to invest in certain things. I think knives are always important. You don't have to go and get a huge butcher's block of knives. Start with one chef knife, a basic set, just something to see if you like it, but you don't need to go out and buy 30 knives. I use one. That's all,
I use one out of my knife block too. Is there anything else that you'd like to tell people making meals on a budget?
I just would love to tell people that you don't have to follow a recipe to a T. Unless you're baking, yes, your cake's not going to turn out well. But when you're cooking, really look at something, excuse me, and if you want to deviate, scribble outside the lines a little bit, I think that's a good idea, because there's so many things that suit your taste, and maybe you like preferences that are different, that you're really not going to mess up the dish if you don't add the olives, if you're not an olive person.
Well, thank you so much for your time. Look for Amy on Fed and Frugal on millionstories.com. Thanks, Amy.
Thank you.